In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.
Welcome to District Divided. I am Amit, and joining me, I've got Matt, KDot, and Elsie. There is no Spencer this week, but we've still got an amazing crew for you guys and an amazing episode as well. We're a DC Sports Podcast, and we're going to begin with the Washington football team. Preseason action has begun, and they got one game in the books with one more coming up this Friday night. We're going to talk about that, led by KDot. Then we're going to talk about the Paralympics. So the Olympics in Tokyo occurred, but next week the Paralympics begin, and LC is going to lead us through that segment. And then the no-hate debate this week. What is the worst part about living in DC, or more generally the DMV area? We're all going to discuss that, led by Matt. And then the State of the Union, your DC Sports wraparound coverage segment, as we do every single week. But as I said, we're beginning with the Washington football team. KDot, what were your thoughts on the game against the New England Patriots this past week?
Well, being able to watch every single snap, looking forward to everything in this game. I mean, it's the first time for football in forever, it seems. So it was just nice to see the guys back out there on the field. But I actually think it was a very, very promising start from what I did see with the Washington football team. I mean, when you're looking at a preseason game, especially number one, there's not a lot that you can hang your hat on, but you want to see how hard some guys are fighting, and you also want to see how game ready some of these dudes are. Like, number one was Chase Young in that defensive line. Like, Montez Sweat didn't even play, but Chase Young right off the bat, everybody saw the highlight of him getting right there and breathing on Cam Newton's neck immediately. And that's what you want, especially after, like, he didn't show up to some of the mini camp stuff, even though people were looking at him like on Instagram doing his thing. The boy is ready, and it looks like he's ready to take the league by storm. I'm just saying, coolest athlete in DC, Chase Young, and also probably the best athlete we got. Maybe not Juan Soto, but Juan Soto plays baseball. You know my feelings on that. Offensively, it gets really, really interesting. There was a stat that came up in the preseason game that if you looked at the amount of receivers that caught a ball, it was 17, I think was the final number, which means there is a backlog at certain positions. Wide receiver, running back, usually the top two that we're kind of talking about. Tight end, there's some interesting things happening. But what happened during the game, you got to see, all right, who are they really trying on certain aspects, or who they really want to see? So in the running back standpoint, you could see Antonio Gibson, that's going to be our guy. You could tell the amount of snaps that he had, pull him right out of the game. It was interesting to see how they're using as far as like J.D. McKissick and Peyton Barber. J.D. McKissick, everybody knows what, I think he led the league, or was like, no, second or third in the league in receptions out of the backfield with 80 last year. And it looks like he might play that same role here for us, where Antonio Gibson could do some of the same things, but he's much more can run the ball down the line. I think what you're also looking for is that third down kind of back, be it third and short or that power runner. And right now that list looked like Peyton Barber, the new guy, Jared Patterson, short youngin, and also in Lamar Miller. Washington let it all be known, Lamar Miller is gone. But Jared Patterson, especially in the second half of that game, was being used for everything. So you could tell they're really trying to get him involved. And you could hear, and I think it was a press conference after the game, or a couple days after the game, where they were describing him as a Darren Sproles type of guy. Be it Darren Sproles in San Diego or maybe a little bit in New Orleans. He's a change of pace guy, somebody you go in there, give carries to, and he keep the offense going. On wide receiver, there were a lot of people involved. That's the position I think is the hardest to really call as far as what the hell is happening. Danny Brown with the that catch at the end of the game for the 2-point conversion that got called back, even though it was a great effort by him. I hope that it looks like he's still going to, Antonio Gandy Golden is the one who got the 2-point conversion, who's somebody that I'm really, really rooting for. Danny Brown looks like he is solid. He's a roster spot. He's going to be charging after Curtis Samuel and those guys for the starting position right there in Washington. But Antonio Gandy Golden is one of those dudes that's kind of tweener type. We don't know exactly where he's going to be. Kelvin Harmon was somebody that we were looking forward to. Gone. And you could see in the preseason game, he really didn't show anything on the field. Like, we didn't really see much. Gone. There's too many people right now that the window's really, really short.
Yeah, and I got a quick question for you, and thanks for that breakdown, because I do think the offense is very promising. Fitzpatrick looked good. He had the really nice throw to Logan Thomas, a touch pass,
fantastic.
Back shoulder, perfect. Nothing but excitement there. Taylor Heineke also looked good. So the QBs you wanted to look good. Who would you say your big winners were, Kadeen, from the game?
If I'm looking at big winners, I think Jared Patterson, the guy that I mentioned earlier, as far as just the amount of reps that he was getting and where they were putting him all over the field. You can see that it's one of these guys that they're like, we know you have talent. We're just trying to figure out where's the best to put you. And I think you're going to see in this next preseason game, he's going to get even more snaps. I think that's the guy that you're really looking to do. They're trying to figure out running backs, because with the wide receivers that we have, can you really justify going into this season with 4 running backs? Could happen. I mean, but they got to make sure they earn their weight where they can really hang with the rest of the team.
I mean, you look at his instincts. That kid can run. It's not just the speed and elusiveness. He knows where to cut, when to cut. I was very impressed with Jared Patterson. A name I'm going to throw out, and we are a Sammis Reyes podcast, but that dude actually had a great game. He had a couple catches. Now, he bobbled both. He did bobble both, but he did catch both. One was for both were for first downs. And the second catch in particular, the guy tried to tackle him and got injured. Yeah. And then he flexed. I mean, he's a baby in this sport. And he has so much untapped potential. And he went 2 for 2 on those catches. And he can block. Like, he was blocking people to the other side of the sideline. I am very curious to see and hear your thoughts, KDot, on Sammis Reyes, because it is, the tight end room is pretty packed. Do you think he's going to make the 53, or do you think they risk putting him on the practice squad because he could get snapped up?
I think that is another interesting thing that I want to see as the preseason goes forward, is that I think Logan Thomas, sealed number 1 tight end. John Bates, who's that rookie tight end, looks pretty good. He looked good, especially in blocking. You hear a lot of things in training camp. So I think he looks like he's in. If we're looking at tight end, who's going to be that third guy? Ricky Seals-Jones got some reps. Now you got Sammis Reyes versus that guy. Who are you going to pick? I think right now I'd say that he does make the 53. It just seems as though they are invested in him. I mean, I know there's the whole foreign Chilean deal. I just don't know of many undrafted first to play football that got a 45-minute press conference after a game and got media coverage on that level. That to me speaks to, okay, they're trying with this guy. And if you got enough players around the other side of this team, I don't see us doing a lot of jumbo or 3 tight end sets. You can keep this guy in there, have him be that project. You can still do what you want to do on offense and not have to have a third tight end that has to contribute right away.
LC, I actually have a question for you. So let's say you're Ron Rivera, you're a head coach, and you have a choice between a guy like Ricky Seals-Jones, who is a proven veteran in the NFL, and he's productive and he's had some good years, or a completely unknown commodity in a guy like Sammis Reyes, who played, college basketball, but that was his first ever NFL game, but he showed a lot of promise. Which player would you keep as your third tight end, assuming you can only keep 3?
Okay, well, first of all, I feel like Ted Lasso managing the wrong football. So fair enough. So I would say, it may depend a little bit on contracts, true, right? I like what Kareem said, that like if you have guys who you already know can contribute, then I would keep my third option as like a project, a potential. Because I don't need somebody who is a surefire. I know that they're gonna, bring X amount of productivity. I already have those guys, but you have all the potential in this new kid in Reyes. And so I would keep, if it's a third option, I would keep the potential one, the one that has just a lot of room for growth. I also like sometimes with people who are new to the sport, like it's hard to predict how good they can get. Like you don't really understand. For me, so let me give you a personal example. First time I came to the United States, I played soccer with a bunch of our high school friends, and I saw kids who were like, okay, decent, some kids were like better than others and whatnot. But throughout the 6 months that we played soccer together, between the fall season and some winter leagues, I saw people grow so much. And for me, that was absolutely shocking, because in Argentina, anytime I play with somebody, they had been playing their entire life. Like their limit for growing was pretty much reached. Like they couldn't practice more because they've been playing their whole fucking life, including me. Like that was our peak. Whereas like with the kids that I met in the US, it was like they were sort of new to soccer. So whatever I saw at the beginning was like their starting point. So they only got better. So I would say like a lot of times with people who are new to the sport, it's like it's hard to understand how much you can grow if you have, like some of these, of course, these people are all freaks of nature. They have such an innate talent for like athletics that neither of us four reach. And so like they have all the potential, and I would go for somebody who has all of that as my third option for sure. If you're telling me who would you start, then that's a different conversation. If you're telling me who do I keep as the third option, the full potential guy.
And he can block as well. At least the early diagnosis there is he is a capable blocker. So if you don't need to put it in his hands, he can certainly be in a jumbo package like KDot was talking about. Matt, same question to you. Would you rather have Ricky Seals-Jones, who's sort of a proven veteran in the league? You know, if you really need him to do something, he'll be able to do it, and he's been playing his whole life? Or would you rather take a shot on a guy like Sammis Reyes? But mind you, this is the NFL we're talking about.
Let me jump in real quick. It's not just his first NFL game. It's the first time he's ever played in a football game, period.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's true. First ever football game. So forget NFL game. First ever football game. Matt, question to you.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is part of the reason, we had the preseason, we have a long training camp, is to evaluate these players. I would personally go with the project, just because, there is potential there and players can grow a lot. But yeah, I agree. This is the NFL. This is a business. I do think, if it were to come down to it and you needed to pick up, let's say first options go down, you can always pick up, maybe a retired vet or something like that if you need to. You maybe overpay for them a little bit, but those options do tend to exist as players start to get hurt. So if you need someone to be a more everyday option as opposed to just a long-term project, then I would personally go with our project guy.
Sammis Reyes, yeah. Well, actually, LC
checks notes.
Yeah, he is, and as I check my notes, he is Chilean. Is that a problem for you?
I'm gonna say no in this case, but that's not a blanket statement. So in this case, I'm gonna let it be. But here's what it was making me think though. It's like, how people always say, like, imagine if LeBron James like play football instead, right? Like how good he would be. Like there are people who have just so much athletic talent, and like they're like clay, right? Like you can mold them into whatever output of athletic performance you want. And so like for me, when you find those sort of, I'm going to say freaks of nature in a good way, like those people who are just at a different level athletically, I think you want to mold them. But in this case, Chilean is fine. Just don't bring another one. Like one is okay.
We have a quota of one Chilean for LC. Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was just going to ask, now we've seen a game. I mean, now that there's been some news, rosters are starting to come into shape. We're only, 3 weeks away from the first game. Have your projections changed at all for what you expect out of this team?
I was honestly very encouraged by that first game. I never look at the score of a preseason game. So for those that don't know, we lost the game, but it's really just about how the ones do. And the starting defense looked great. I mean, Chase Young off that edge against a guy, Isaiah Wynn, who's one of the best tackles in the NFL. He made him look like he was an undrafted free agent trying out for the team. Like Chase Young looked fantastic, as we expect. Fitzpatrick looked better than I thought. And Taylor Heineke seemed to have picked up, and Ron Rivera said so as well, seemed to have picked up where he left off last season. So I'm very encouraged by what I saw. It does not change my projections. I do believe this is a playoff team that'll win the NFC East. KDot?
I'm in the same boat. I mean, Fitzpatrick actually did. I saw more out of Fitzpatrick than I even thought I'd like. Like the zip he had on that ball, and the touch that he put on that pass to Logan Thomas, the fact that he just looks comfortable in the pocket, and it wasn't that he was forcing stuff that didn't seem like they were nowhere. Like he's putting the ball right on. You can tell he's got confidence, and I like that in Fitzpatrick. I also really dig the fact that Kyle Allen's coming back, and I think Kyle and Taylor fighting for the second position is a really good thing as far as the team goes. Steve Montez, whether he's a practice QB, just whatever, he's not going to be the guy, you could tell. And on defense, I mean, right now, I still think that defensive line is the best in football. And outside of that defensive line, I think the one position I'm looking at right now where I'm like, all right, that might be an issue is linebacker. Just because of certain things that when the running back got to the second level, you could see that there was an issue as far as guys getting to him. So that is something that I'm looking out for. But with that said, Landon Collins looks amazing in the box right now. So right now, if I'm looking at the team, I'm saying that I'm buying. I'm buying more than I'm selling as far as where it is that I think this team is going to end up.
Yeah, a lot of encouraging signs. Now, there are still a couple more preseason games to go. Injuries can happen. This team has been very, very fortunate so far is the word I'll use with the injuries so far. You see other teams get banged up. We've been good so far. Knock on wood. Let's keep that going. Because otherwise projections can change. Go ahead, KDot.
Dustin Hopkins, though.
Ooh, yeah.
That, like, I did hear tell that he might have some stuff happening personally around COVID and his family or what have you. So maybe I'm hoping that with encouragement, he gets to where he needs to be. But if I'm looking at where last year, the last few years, he's missed some really important kicks, and he just did not look there this week. I thought maybe it had something to do with the long snapper being somebody different now, but Tress Way didn't have any issues getting the ball out from what I could tell. So I'm really kind of in a situation where if I'm Washington, I'm at least bringing in some kicking competition. I mean, they re-signed him in March, so it looks like they're going all in with Dustin, but it did not look great what I saw from the kicking unit.
How much soccer did Reyes play in Chile?
That is an excellent question. I don't know that I have the answer to that. I imagine with his size, either forward or keeper.
Just saying.
Well, hey, in Ron we trust when it comes to Hopkins. He hasn't brought anybody in, and maybe he knows about whatever personally is going on for him. Personally, I'm glad Dustin Hopkins missed a kick in London that caused Kirk Cousins to not be the quarterback of this team. So there was a little long-term benefit there. So thank you, Dustin, for that. Appreciate it. But now let's move on to the Paralympics. LC, walk us through it. It starts next week. Just give us a bit of information here.
Yeah. One more thing I want to say about the preseason that you just made me think about with the NFL. It's cool that the actual starters play in the preseason games as opposed to like the NBA Summer League, which you get to see second round 45th pick. It's like, who are these people? So it's cool that you get to see like actual players who you're going to see all season, probably because the season is so short and you actually need those games. So let's get into the Paralympics. They start next Tuesday, the 24th. There is an opening ceremony. There is a closing ceremony. They happen in Tokyo. So this always goes the same way. The Olympics happen, and then about a week or two later, the Paralympics happen, same venue. They basically leave a couple of weeks of buffer to like people to move out, new people to move in. Obviously this year, everything is a little bit weirder with COVID and whatnot, but it's always in the same city. It's always right after. They use the same facilities, and obviously the city already has all the infrastructure to hold the event. So it's pretty convenient that way. So what I thought that we would do is just talk a little bit about some local athletes that we have, some Paralympic athletes. And if you have any questions or anything that I can help you understand about the Paralympics, would love to try. And if not, we can Google them live right here. That's production live right now. But if you want to watch the Paralympics, if you're interested, you can watch them the same way you watch the Olympics, which I think is pretty cool. So they will be on NBC. They'll be on NBC Sports Network. They'll be on the Olympic channel. And most importantly, because I think that's the way most people watched it, you can watch them online, like just stream whatever event you want. You want to watch archery and they're not playing it, you can go online and watch the event, which is pretty cool. Like the shoot with their feet. It's insane. Like just absolutely amazing what these athletes do. So let's talk a little bit about some Paralympic local athletes. By far, I think the most recognizable name is Jessica Long, who, if you watch the Olympics, you probably saw in the ad for the car maker with a T. I don't know if we can say it because of the brands, but she's got 23 Paralympic medals. It's the second one most in Paralympic history. I didn't look up who was the first one, so we're just going to go with her being a legend for having 23, participating again, going for more. She is a swimmer. She swims. So the list of events, it's like 3 lines long. She swims every possible event in the pool, I think, that they have. She's 50-meter freestyle, 100-meter freestyle, 400-meter freestyle, 100-meter backstroke, 100-meter breaststroke, 100-meter butterfly, 200-meter individual medley. So plenty of opportunities for her to get more medals and become an absolute legend, which obviously she already is. And then we have a couple of ones that I do want to mention. There are more from local, but there's maybe 2 that I want to mention, or 3. One of them is the one that is actually from Washington, D.C. Everyone else is sort of from the DMV area. The one from Washington, D.C. is Hallie Smith. She's in rowing. She is in the women's single sculls. It's her first Paralympic Games. She was 6th in the last World Championship in 2019. So wishing her the best. She's our local Paralympic athlete. So hopefully she does well over there. And then the second one that I'd like to mention is Sydney Barta, who is a high schooler. She goes to National Cathedral School, class of 2022, And she actually got fourth in multiple events in 2019. She is a track and field Paralympic athlete. So in 2019, as a high schooler, even younger high schooler, she got fourth. In 2021, she's going to be in her first Paralympic Games. So lots of expectation, lots of promise over there. We'll be watching for her. She'll be in the 100-meter, 200-meter discus throw and shot put throw. So one of those all-around athletes that are so common in these Paralympics, actually. And the last one that I want to mention right now is Lawrence Sapp, who swims the 100-meter butterfly, 200-meter individual medley, and 200-meter freestyle. He's a first-time Paralympian, got silver in the World Championship, got gold in 2017, so still competitive, still going to be out there going for gold. So those are a few of our local athletes that you should keep an eye on.
You said archery with your feet. Is that right?
Yes.
That is insane.
So we don't.
I really want to see
it's
video
insane.
of that.
So you really have to see, like, obviously, we're not gonna get into it, but there's like 10 different categories of like disabilities that qualify for you to be a Paralympian, and like all the sports have some sort of obviously adaptation. They're done in a different way, and so there's like rugby, wheelchair basketball. We have a local wheelchair basketball player. His name is Trevin Jennifer. In basketball, wheelchair basketball, the U.S. is not as dominant as, you know, we've talked in previous weeks on obviously having the NBA. Still like always contending for gold, but not as dominant as like winning everything, men's and women's, for, you know, how many decades. But still always up there with Great Britain and Australia. So if you watch any of the wheelchair basketball, you'll see Trevin Jennifer in there. But yes, the adaptations that you know these sports have, they make the sport obviously completely different dynamic a lot of times. I know in tennis, for example, the ball can bounce twice, and they're obviously using, you know, their hands to both move and hit the ball. Like it's just like a completely different sport. And I think, I don't know if I don't remember in Rio being able to stream it. Like, just, I don't know, it's been 5 years, I guess. Now, like it's you know, 5G and all the accessibility to internet may be a lot easier, but I don't remember having the opportunity to like watch any Paralympic event that I wanted. So I'm really excited for that opportunity, and just seeing what some of these athletes do, which is unthinkable to me.
Do you know what some of so you'd said there are some disabilities that allow you to become a Paralympian, or
Yeah.
what are some of those?
So there's like 10 categories. I was just actually looking at them. There's like 10 categories. Some of them have to do with like physical disabilities. So like, you know, people who were either born without a limb or like were paralyzed, for example, at some point in their lives. There's also a category for like intellectual disabilities. There's obviously people who are like blind. So there's 10 different categories, and then each sport, from what I was reading, has like a subcategory of like how you participate depending on the disability. So it's actually sort of kind of a complicated web of how these sports are separated. But yeah, those are some of the sports that we'll be seeing. The U.S. seems to have a lot of power in track and field. That seems to be one of the specialties of the U.S. team, and the swimming. Obviously, swimming has been another one that the U.S. has been extremely successful at.
Yeah, well, so I mean, it falls on my ignorance anyway, because initially I was thinking about Friday Night Lights, Jason Street. Shout out Jason Street, one of the best, you know, paraplegic characters in TV. But like, I was thinking about just like someone that was like paralyzed, like Jessica Long swimming. And initially I was like, wait, how does that? But now that makes a lot more sense, that there are other ways that you can sort of qualify and be considered. Yeah.
And there are, so I was also reading up, if you remember Oscar Pistorius, who was actually like qualifying to participate in the Summer Olympics, not the Paralympics, but the Summer Olympics. And so there's been like 2 cases, I think, of that, of Paralympic athletes participating in the Summer Olympics. So like and when that happened, there was a whole debate, right, on like, you know, is there an advantage to using the carbon fiber prosthetics, or is, you know, how do you compare, right, like those two things? And so, but in my opinion, like all these sports are just a completely different sports. I remember very fondly like an experience. I was like in 7th or 8th grade, and we had a local sort of disability advocate organization come to my school, and we did a whole like sort of morning of sports with you know, different disabilities with kids, and just the difficulty of maneuvering, you know, a wheelchair, or the difficulty of the Argentinian blind soccer team is really good actually. And like the difficulty of just trying to keep track of a ball with sound. I mean, to me, like when you see these athletes, it is something that I would never even fathom to be able to do, which already happens with the Olympics, but in the Paralympics, it's just like extenuated.
So besides archery, what would you say is like the event you're most looking forward to?
So, I mean, I think that I would say all of these events have enough difference from like, you know, their correspondent event in the Olympics that they're all going to be pretty interesting to watch. Like I really want to watch wheelchair rugby. Like I just don't understand how that will work. So like I want to know. But from what I've been looking at, there isn't sort of like a big deal on specific events. Like I would say in the Olympics, like everyone knows the 100-meter Olympic athletes, right? Like there's sort of like it's like the thing. There isn't anything that is sort of like the overwhelming sort of principal sport that everyone watches. But I think that the track and field events, I think that will be probably the most entertaining, just because there's so much happening right in the field. Like it's just, you know, one sort of, what do you call, one arena where everything is happening, and you can, you know, the camera can switch from one event to the other event to the other event. So I think that will be maybe the most entertaining to watch. I don't know that there's a bigger one in terms of audience or sort of importance.
Okay. Damn, wild. No, I really appreciate the info, LC. Matt, KDot, you guys got any questions for him?
No questions. I as soon as you said wheelchair rugby, my curiosity kind of peaked. I'm really interested in seeing. I've seen wheelchair basketball. I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen the archery with feet. I've seen that.
Pretty wild.
Wheelchair rugby. That's intriguing, and yeah, I might tune in. I might watch more Paralympics than I did watch the real or the Summer Olympics. But we'll see.
Absolutely.
Or to be wrong, should I be equal opportunity and just not watch any?
No, just don't watch the Olympics. Only watch the Paralympics. That's
do that.
Yeah,
let's do that.
Compensate.
Okay, let's do that.
So what channel can these be watched on?
So they'll be doing like primetime coverage like on NBC and NBC Sports Network, but you can go online to NBC and like as they're happening, watch them. Obviously it's in Tokyo, so the times are as inconvenient as they were for the Olympics, but usually you can catch good things if you like get up in the morning. It's like as you're doing work from home, you have a second screen or the TV on, you can put it there. There's usually events until about like 10 a.m., which is like 11 p.m. in Tokyo. And then at night, if you're like, you know, after dinner, like 7 or 8 p.m. here, it's like 8 or 9 a.m. there. So things start in Japan there. So I'd say the best times for watching are like either right as you wake up or like after dinner when you're like trying to find something to watch on TV.
So wait, does it always happen in Tokyo? Because you had said same city, right? Each time? And it was based on...
It happens in this... No, it happens in the same city than the Olympics happen.
Oh,
so
I
like
see. Okay.
Okay. 2016 Paralympics were in Rio. Like
that makes a lot more sense. Okay. I initially thought that you had said same city every year because they have the facilities and specially designed for it. That makes more sense to me. Okay, cool. And so just to go ahead.
I think you're right about the Rio thing as far as just the ability to do the streaming stuff. Because I always feel like the Paralympics, you're usually, the way that I know anything is happening is you get one or two clips that might get or catch viral, and then I always watch them like, oh, where'd these come from, or where did anybody watch this in the first place? But we
didn't even know they were happening. Yeah,
exactly right. You just see the clip, and then everybody sort of like this inspirational clip, and it's like, oh my god, where did this come from? And it's so it's nice to know they're going to have full clock coverage. It's easily accessible.
So NBC Sports, you can stream it online. Thank you, Elsie, for that. Could we quickly run through the athletes again? So there was Hallie Smith, the local ones, Hallie Smith, Sydney.
I got you. Batra. Hallie Smith. We had Joshua George in track and field, Tatiana McFadden, also track and field, Danielle Romanchuk, also track and field, Trevin Jennifer in wheelchair basketball, Sydney Barta, as I mentioned, the high schooler in track and field, Lauren Sapp in swimming, also Zachary Shatuk in swimming, and then Jessica Long in swimming. Again, these are sort of the more local DMV athletes. There are, 100, I think, or some athletes in the U.S. team for the whole Paralympics.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for that info, LC. And of course, Jessica Long, 23 medals. That was something I learned today. That was fucking impressive. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. And so that's the Paralympics. Starts Tuesday, August 24th. And now we move on to the no hate debate. Matt, question for you. When you came up with this question, talk us through the thought process here.
All right, so for our avid listeners, the debate topic is what is the worst part about living in DMV? And I actually thought of this question a while ago, a few months ago, and a few things have, I've lived in the area now for 7 years, DC proper now for 3, and so I've kind of accrued a list over the years. I think there are some things that hit you right when you get to the city. We're like, wow, this is tough to live through. What?
Is this Festivus?
This is not Festivus, but and there are many great things. We're not going to talk about this today. This is not a time to celebrate the city. It's time to beat it down or the area. So I'm curious what you guys think. There are some standards. There are some go-tos, and for good reason those are go-tos. But I'm curious what you guys have on your list. So I'll throw it to LC first.
Okay, I would say you're asking me mid-August. So for me, the worst has been just the swampy conditions, man. Like it's just walking outside and feeling like there's a dragon breathing in your face. It's just so, and it feels like, so I would compare it to the worst part about living in Ohio was that winter was like 11 months long. And like here, it feels like summer. I literally was saying today, I don't remember last time I felt cold. Like it feels like it's been so freaking long. I've been sweating for 4 months constantly. For me, the worst part of living here is just that it's so swampy, and I don't mean just Capitol Hill. I mean like the temperature and the conditions and the humidity.
Yeah, I think that is a common go-to thing about DC. The summers here are gross, and yeah, it's not just hot. It's nasty. And so like I remember I used to walk like 14 minutes to the metro to hop on it for work, and you're just like drenched in work clothes when you're away. And that's a tough feeling to start your day. What about you, Kadeem?
So there's a multitude of things that I could really go to as far as why. So like you see my arm, my DC tattoo. So I'm born and raised Washington DC, Howard University Hospital, represent. But I will say that I've fled the city on more than one occasion. Because of a multitude of things. Like the humidity, as a fat man, LC, I got you, bro. Like it sucks. Trying to figure out just how to walk to the car. Like I got AC in the car, and the building's getting AC, and I still look like I ran a marathon. I mean, I do need to lose some weight, but still the temperature and the climate in this area is not helping me. There's even what you just said, Matt, as far as you had to walk 14 minutes to the metro. For a city that has public transportation, it's very inconvenient a lot of times here too, right? So I think that in a lot of ways can be one of those things. The fact that unlike New York, a lot of places close at times that you want places to be open. Very, very inconvenient for what's supposed to be a big city, right? But if there's one thing that I'm going to go to more than any other thing that I hate about Washington, D.C. proper, and it's starting to expand throughout the DMV, is the word I want to use is gentrification, but I won't. I'm going to say pricing. It's just they price you out of this fucking city. Now, as a Washingtonian born and raised, right? I think the statute of limitations is up on this, so I'm going to take a chance. My last 2 years of high school, I lived in Baltimore, Maryland. I commuted every day to go to class. Why? Because I lost my childhood home. We couldn't afford to be in the city anymore. We had to travel 50 miles a day. I remember us sitting down and trying to figure out the calculations on gas, the timing, everything else. Was it worthwhile? And it was absolutely worthwhile to do the commute, which was insane to me. Like the city that I was born and raised in, and we got to make room for Max to show up every 7 years or whatever just to take it over. And there's no culture in the city anymore. You just got people like him coming from Detroit, just bringing their Detroitness to the city, just killing it, right? Like the fact that I saw the Washington football team put out a go-go video the other day. They had the Washington dance team. They were doing the go-go shit. And half the comments, what the fuck is this? What is this? They don't have this in Detroit. What's going on? What's going on with this? It just sucks. I think the pricing itself has been the absolute biggest detrimental factor in Washington, D.C. having culture, in Washington, D.C. having residents that are born here that can be able to be proud to be here. It's the reason the DMV name even comes up. You know why? Because what it used to be when I was a kid, you represented when you were in Washington. When people said they were from Washington, they were from Woodbridge, you told them, get the fuck out of here. Now you don't question it that much. Why? Because you got priced out of the city, and the only place you can afford is probably Woodbridge or PG County or something else. So you got to say the DMV thing. And we let it go now. You know why? Because nobody can afford to be in this fucking town. Even this apartment that I'm in, my girlfriend's apartment, she's ridiculous the amount of money she's paying for this fucking thing. I refuse. It ain't going to happen. Just saying.
I kid you not, as you were mentioning it and calling out my Detroit S, which is very fair, my internet cut out and I did miss it, so I'll have to watch it on the pod because I did not quite see it all. But I'll catch. I got the gist. Apologies.
It's all good.
Internet's also sucks in the city. All right, Amit, on to you.
Well, I just want to thank you, Matt, for having me go after KDot and that passion, because there's no way I could. Well, you didn't hear it, so I guess this doesn't really affect you a whole lot. But that was really good, KDot. For me, I was thinking about it. I'm biased. I'm from the city. I still live in the city. I had to go with something that's just bitten me in the ass over and over and over again. You'd think I learned my lesson, but I don't. These speed cameras are everywhere, and they are very stealthy about where they put them. If you have driven on K Street Northwest going down towards Key Bridge, you have been caught by that 25 mile per hour bullshit that still exists there today. It makes the city millions. Just that one. Forget the other ones. Just that one. Everyone gets caught on it. Paychecks have gone to that thing. The speed cameras piss me off to no end in this city, and they keep switching the locations of it. And it just seems like a very disingenuous practice. I hate it. Absolutely hate it.
Do you think like somebody at the DMV, but not like the area, like the Department of Motor Vehicles, which I assume is whoever's in charge of that, do you think that they like hiring process for who selects the locations of these cameras is like looking for some evil genius? Like, what is that?
I tell you what, if there are people that don't want to get priced out of the city, you just work for them and figure it out, because I'm sure they'll give you housing for getting that shit right. That location's absurd.
Getting a ticket at that K Street one is a rite of passage for being a resident of the city. I think everyone has gotten one.
I have not.
You have not? Never?
All right, I will tell you this. Waze is your friend, bro. Like,
Waze
I literally, my girlfriend gets on my ass every time. As soon as we get in the car, phone goes up there and Waze gets pulled up, even if I'm not using it to go direction anywhere. Waze is a permanent fixture in my car. But there's one speed camera in particular that I don't know if you've gone through it. New York Avenue and Bladensburg Road out there in Northeast where the Checkers is as you're leaving the town.
I've seen a flash. I have not been caught by that one.
There were statistics about this camera that like in 2 months, there was enough people that got tickets to fill FedEx Stadium. It was something stupid. What they did, the intersection is so big, you can enter it on green and literally the camera, you will turn red by the time you're out of the intersection. It was literally just a cash grab. It was just a cash grab. There were times that I was looking at the camera. I remember I got caught in the camera. I'm like, why's the first photo you sent me got a green light in me, you assholes? And then you showed me the last. Okay, this traffic change. I slowed down a little bit and then you caught me. There's not enough time. All right, yeah, that does aggravate me.
Yeah, speed cameras.
I got a speed cam story. It was my first year in the area, and I was driving. House I was in didn't really have speed cams, and so I got one. There's one near RFK Stadium. So I was driving through there, and cars were slowing down. Didn't know what was going on. Didn't have my Waze on. Blow past them. Get flashed. Cool. I know what's coming. 2 days later, envelope comes in, being like, I was like probably 23 at the time. Didn't open it up. Didn't pay it right away. I was like, kind of forgot about it. 2 weeks later, another envelope comes in the mail. I'm like, oh shoot, that's probably a late notification. I need to pay it next day. So next morning I wake up, Saturday morning I wake up, and I open up the two, and I'm like, oh, these are two different tickets. These are not even the same ticket. I'm like, oh, that sucks. And then I log in to pay them, and I realized that I had gotten a third one that I hadn't even sent to my house yet. And so I started my Saturday morning by paying $450 to the city of DC, and that was a tough Saturday.
It is absurd.
Yeah,
I do remember when cameras were like new, so like 07, 08, when they were first putting them in. I remember me and my boys, guys from over in Palisades, we were in my dad's Camry, and we decided we were going to try to hit the high score on the they tell you what speed you're going. So I wanted to flash to a point where it couldn't. So I get home, this like about a week or two later, because at that point they weren't on point, and there's a envelope with the word asshole written on it, and my dad's handwriting. I open it up. It's all my friends hanging out the sunroof and the windows. The camera goes up this big thing. It was a great time. It was a great time. That was back when it was like $20 a ticket. Didn't give a shit. It was just like whatever it is.
Yeah, no, these days, my God. And the city's trying to catch up right now, right? Because of COVID and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
these things are everywhere. The cops are out too. They're pulling people over for no freaking reason. It's so annoying. Anyway, speaking.
Honorable mention also DC hatred. Dave Thomas Circle.
Yep, sure. Well, just any circle in general. They're so poorly designed. I feel like no one knows. I'm shocked there are not accidents there every single day. Some of these circles are so poorly done. Matt, I want to hear from you. I could go on all day. Clearly.
I have a lot of what you guys have. Obviously, the summers. The Metro, I actually think gets a worse rap than it deserves. I think it's actually a pretty dependable system. But that being said, for me going to like my office, which is like just across the bridge in Arlington from where I live, should be 15 minutes. It takes me 45 minutes because I have to like transfer and whatnot. So there are some deficiencies, but all in all, I think Metro, the new trains, very nice, always AC'd. Okay, not too many regrets there. Traffic can be a little tricky. I think every major city struggles with that. I did have down as a city, and you probably mentioned one of the reasons why, but there is not a inherent personality to the city. And there's a lot of transplants. There's a lot of people coming in for a few years, probably jacking up the rent and getting out of here. But if I think about the Midwest, if I think about Detroit and Cleveland and Pittsburgh and maybe like a Buffalo, there is a inherent, or in Cleveland and Kansas City, like there's inherent, Midwest culture that Chicago is that just a little bit more spiced up. If you think about the West Coast, LA and San Diego, if you think about Texas, you think about that. Even if you go up to New York and Philly and Boston, there's a little bit of a joint. I mean, I think they're slightly different. In DC, I don't really know what that is. It's people come in and out all the time. And I think most big cities, or a lot of big cities, there are a lot of transplants, but for some reason, nothing seems to stick here. So that is one thing. But I want to say, I think we hit on all the big spots. The other thing I want to throw out, and we've talked about this before, but there's not a single good pizza spot in this city. That's my main problem with it. Because
what about Red Light?
What?
You like Red Light?
Red Light is like a $25 pizza.
It is expensive.
You know what I mean? Like I don't count that as a top pizza. I used to think the food in the city was not good. Then I had to go find some real spots to eat.
Lido's.
Yeah,
Lido's,
and we're gonna fight.
God,
And we're gonna fight
believe
because Matt hates Lido
I
pizza.
hate
I
Lido's.
love
Don't
Lido
disrespect
pizza.
I think Lido's is so disgusting.
But I actually think overall, other than a few restaurant areas or like some well-known chefs that are doing their things, like Spike Mendelssohn's, Jose, DC is not a great food town.
So I used to think
literally Baltimore, in my opinion, gives it a run for its money, and it shouldn't. Like there's no reason Baltimore should be in the same conversation as DC, and it is, and that's ridiculous to me.
So I used to think that, and I think there's a matter of like, if you're on New York and it's 2 a.m., you can find a bomb meal, right? I think that is one way to judge a city's food. I don't think it's good to judge it by like your 5-star restaurants, because every 5-star restaurant you go to is probably going to be very good. But I do think as I've gotten more, especially into like the Columbia Heights, Mount Pleasant area, there are a ton of like restaurants that you can eat for very cheaply, very good meals. As I've gotten away from, I don't know, the DuPonts or the Logan Circles, whatever, like where the meals are kind of more expensive, I really like the meals up in my neck of the woods, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
You should have been here 20 years ago, bud. Like when everything was a hole in the wall, good spot to go get something, where the writing was just spray painted or painted into the brick on the side of the building, like that. Good. That to me was, I don't respect your carryout unless there's bulletproof glass between me and your. There's less of those now. I need health code violations. I need to know that like the chicken I'm eating is entirely too tender to be chicken. Oh my God, there used to be a lot of rats out here. Now there isn't. Like I need to know that you are bringing me some authentic shit in this city. How many restaurants you go into with reclaimed wood and fucking mason jars? It's just,
I live in Silver Spring, which is like right outside of DC, and that's like our main complaint of the area. There's no holes in the wall. Everything is a chain. Like everything that we can go eat is like the same. You could get the exact same burrito in fucking the other side of the country. Like nothing is sort of local and unique. It's just chains, nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's where do you want the restaurant spending their time? You want them perfecting their craft, or do you want them getting rid of those rats that are just right outside? Want them perfecting their craft, and that's the hole in the wall right there.
City's
Spray
problem.
paint it. That's totally fine. That's totally fine. Keep spray painting that title of your restaurant. It's totally fine with me.
There are some nice pockets. Like when you say Silver Spring, I used to live in Wheaton. And if you go all the way up Georgia Avenue in Wheaton, where all the writing turns into Spanish, there are some legit hole-in-the-wall spots. Or like there are legit taquerias. That's what it's like. You go up Bears Mill Road, you're like, yo, what's this truck doing with all the flashing lights? Let's go check it out. And $3 tacos, and you're like, yo, this is hitting. Like, there is an element of that. But in DC, like, the closest you can get to that vibe, I think, still is Adams Morgan, Columbia Heights, where you still have a lot of the Latin and Spanish stuff going on. But, like, the black culture stuff in DC is kind of wiped out. It used to be U Street. Now, some of that exists, but it's just, hey, let's jazz it up with a black name, and then people will buy it. It's bullshit. It's going over to where Union Market is breaks my heart every goddamn on time. Because what it used to be were actual places where you could go in and they had open markets with like food from Ethiopia. And this is where like the people would come and all this food was coming off the ship right there. And they would have it. And it was sketchy as shit. And your shoes would get messed up in puddles of liquid. You didn't understand what it was. Like, but it was true. It was something legit, and now everything is just the same.
They still have that one very small block of Union Market that has managed to maintain its integrity.
Letteri's.
Yeah.
Letteri's is the only thing that's still the mainstay over there, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is sad. Okay, so no, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about DC because, again, born and raised here, went to school in Minnesota, but then came back. Like, I haven't really known like other places for the food spots and stuff like that. But whenever I do go to New York, yeah, you're right. You can find a bot meal at 2 a.m. No problem on almost every block. Anyway, any final words, Matt, before we move on to the State of the Union?
No, that was all I had. It was fun segment.
I have a mea culpa on the speed cameras. I live in a place that I could see a speed camera from my balcony. And so if you've ever had a ticket taken to you on Colesville, I probably laughed at you. Maybe celebrate a little bit because it's nighttime and you see the flash, you're like, hey, and then you try to guess, you see a car coming, you're like, oh, is he gonna get it? Is he gonna get it? And then you do a dollar bet immediately, like dollar bet's gonna get it, and you see the camera flashing, like somebody's getting charged, but it's pretty fun. So I'm sorry.
No, hey, listen, welcome
tip.
to the light show at LC's. Go ahead, Kate.
A tip: Montgomery County speed cameras do not go off unless you're 11 miles over the speed limit. You can actually
I
look.
hover at 9.
You can look at every jurisdiction. You can look online, and they have all the specifics about what speed cameras they use and when they do clock them.
That's pretty high.
It's pretty. That's what I'm saying. So when I'm zooming by, like on Connecticut Avenue, all these assholes going 5 miles on the speed limit, I'm like, left lane, boom, I'm gone.
Hey, but don't do that on the K Street one. I'm serious. That one is
K
just
Street, fuck that one.
3
It's
miles
calibrated.
over.
It's calibrated.
And they'll say you were 6 over. Oh, I hate that fucking thing. Anyway,
but fuck this city. Move to Baltimore. Mark train right down there. Takes you 30 minutes. Pay a quarter in rent. The food's better.
All right, well, you got KDot's update in the State of the Union, your DC sports wraparound coverage segment. His bit was get the fuck out of the city. But why don't we go ahead and send it right back to KDot, and let's talk about the Washington football team. It is a preseason game, but it is a big game for a lot of these guys on the roster bubble against Cincinnati on Friday.
Yeah, it's going to be, to me, it's more the same. We want to see what some of these guys do as far as on defense. I'm not sure if Montez is coming back. I'm hoping he comes back for this game. I haven't heard the exact word on that, but I want to see what kind of speed he's dealing with. I want to see if Chase and those guys are still popping. And I also want to see from the linebacker position, like I said, Jamin Davis, those guys, I want to see more speed from these guys. I need to see that they're going to be able to make sure that second level is covered, or they're going to be able to cover those gaps. Because the front four is stout. But one of those things that those front four do is allow opportunities for the linebackers to go make plays. We need playmakers at linebacker. And if that doesn't happen, we're in for, I mean, it's not going to be a long season. We're still going to be able to do it. But I'm telling you, if they can get those linebackers to move, that defense is going to not just be good, but could be great. I mean, like all-time great. The talent that's rocking on that defense looks incredible to me. Yeah.
I feel like Matt was just rolling his eyes over there. He's like, oh, God, an all-time great defense.
No, I'm not rolling my eyes.
I will. One other thing on the Washington wraparound. Is this the wraparound thing? The State of the Union.
That's
it
correct.
Looks as though Jason Wright has gotten the names down to 3. We are down to 3. If you've been following the series online, it looks like the 3 might be Commanders, Wolves, or Red Tails. So everybody start thinking about whether or not you love one of those names.
Could you quickly rank them from 1 to 3, KDot?
Dollar betting.
Wolves without the red makes me a little less excited, even though I
agree.
really like the W logo that I was seeing them kind of rock on that television screen. So I think right now I'm going 1 red tails just because at least it's historically, like, it gives me something. Number 2, I'm still going to go Wolves and then Commanders. Commanders, I dig. I don't hate any of these names, to be completely honest.
Okay, sounds good. And let's move on to the Washington Nationals, where Matt has an update for us.
What's going on, team? How you guys doing today? I'm back with our Washington Nats update. Since the last pod, it's been a sweet best. Nats have lost all 6 games, swept by the Mets, swept by the Braves. And what did I tell you? We'll be seeing you back in 2023. The only positive news, Josiah Gray now 3 solid starts for the Nats. His first 3 starts in the majors. And he's got a sub-3 ERA, 0-1 record because he's not getting any run support and the bullpen's been blowing up. But sub-3 ERA, whip around right around 1, and a K per 9 above 10. So we're going to keep tracking him. He's going to be an important piece for this future. So it's good to see him starting off his MLB, his major career, in a good place. But again, Nats swept. They've now lost 12 of 13. And see you in 2023.
See you in 2023. Chief meteorologist of wins and losses, Matt Regan there. Actually saw Josiah Gray pitch on, I believe it was Friday night. He looks great. I'm very, very happy with him returning in that Trey Turner, Max Scherzer trade, and I cannot wait to get a Josiah Gray jersey next season. Oh, I'm so excited for him. Don't give me that look, Matt. I'm so excited for this guy. I think he's
Stay away from him in Jersey, okay?
Oh yeah, you're right. He's going to leave in a year if I get
Thank
his
you.
jersey.
Please,
so
stay the fuck away.
maybe I'll reconsider. But anyway, let's
What you do with the Russell Westbrook jersey? Sorry, my bad.
TBD. For now, it's in my closet, but I just look at it and cry sometimes. Let's talk about women's basketball. Let's talk about the Washington Mystics. It has been quite a while. Elena Deladon is still not back. That seems to be the constant of the season. And they were back in action on Sunday without her. Lost by 1 point to the Las Vegas Aces, 84-83, whom they play again at the time of this recording. So if you're seeing this podcast now, you already missed the game. Olympic gold medalists Tina Charles and Ariel Atkins each had 20 points in that game on Sunday. The rest of the schedule this week includes the Phoenix Mercury on Thursday at 10 p.m. on Twitter. Twitter is actually showing the game. I guess you could just go to the Mystic site or WNBA page and you could just stream it, apparently. And then they play the Seattle Storm at home at 2 p.m. on Sunday, and that is on ESPN2, much more conventional viewing option there. The Washington Wizards Summer League action is over. As LC had mentioned earlier, it was a shit show. The Washington Wizards got hit by COVID, so Cassius Winston didn't play. Michigan State, great. Someone that Matt probably hates as a result. And here's the thing. There was no point guard play. Corey Kispert had one good game, and it was because he made it happen himself, which is something he may need to learn to do on this team. He had 18 points in that game, and that only win against the Milwaukee Bucks, we went 1-3 overall. On to women's soccer.
We beat the champs.
Hey, we beat the champs. Giannis did not play unbelievably in the summer league. Yeah, I know.
Why wouldn't he?
Listen,
Did any of the other ones? Any of the other Antetokounmpos?
No, they were all
got
chilling.
so many.
Man. As far as I saw, they were all chilling.
Giannis started losing heart, man. My stars play. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, hey, that's how it should be.
How you gonna get that 3-point bet if you ain't out there shooting?
I feel like a $230 million contract doesn't show up to play. It's
ridiculous.
Just a lack of heart. Absolute lack of heart. On to women's soccer. Very eventful week. Let's begin with the head coach. So Richie Burke, last week I told you guys, hey, he was stepping down due to health concerns. Well, Washington Post and The Athletic did a little bit of digging. Turns out there were verbal assault allegations on Richie Burke, and they were trying to put him away from the spotlight for a little bit, keep him in the front office. That came out. Next thing you know, the Spirit come out. Owner Steve Baldwin says, hey, we're looking into that. Very, very serious. In the meanwhile, they deleted the post saying there were health concerns at all. Turns out Richie Burke is just fine, but there is no way he is coming back at this point. Wish him all the best. Hope that it gets better, but this has been a trend for him for some time. So very unfortunate, sort of a dark spot for the Washington Spirit. So finally they got to play some soccer on Friday night against the Houston Dash, and they went up 2-0 thanks to goals from Paige Nielsen and Tori Huster. Both beautiful goals. You got to check them out. Paige Nielsen just off the top of the box, off a corner kick, drills it. Bottom 90. It was a beautiful shot. but we end up tying 2-2. Still nice to get a point after the week that we had. The Spirit are now in 6th place, the last playoff spot in the NWSL with 10 games to go there. Up next, Sunday at Audi Field, not Segra, against the Orlando Pride at 4 p.m. The game can be seen on Paramount Plus. Now, finally, DC United. They have been on fire recently, and they got a bucket of water poured on them in Nashville. 5-2 loss to Nashville SC. A wildly entertaining game, though. It was 3-2 at halftime. United now dropped to 6th place in the Eastern Conference in the MLS, which is a playoff spot with 15 games to go. So they could still move out, or they could move up some more. Up next, at the first place New England Revolution. And that is tonight at 7 p.m. And then Saturday night at home against Atlanta United at 8 p.m. Both games can be seen on DCUnited.com and NBC Sports Washington. And that's going to conclude your State of the Union, your DC Sports Wraparound Coverage segment. And this is District Divided, a DC Sports podcast, and we dabble in other topics as well. Talked about the Paralympics, and we always have our no-hate debates, which are always a lot of fun. Looking forward to the football game on Friday. You can see that on, I believe, the NFL Network, and locally you could see it on NBC or Comcast Sportsnet, whatever they're calling it these days. But thank you all for listening. Once again, this is Amit, that's KDot, that's LC, that's Matt, and we will catch you guys next Wednesday at 3 p.m. Take it easy. Have a great week.